Hey tech enthusiast, welcome back to my channel where we transform complex tech topics into simple actionable steps. Today we are diving into an essential skill for modern web development, that is connecting SQL Server to .NET Web API. Whether you are coding wizard or just stepping into the world of development, this tutorial has got you covered. We are going to explore two powerhouse methods. One is the classic setup using the SQL Server installer with SQL Server Management Studio, simply known as the SSMS. The second part here is we are also going to have a look on the cutting-edge approach using Docker containers. But before we dive right into this tutorial, if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell icon. Why? You ask? By subscribing, you're joining a community of passionate developers like you, always eager to learn and grow. You will get an instant access to our latest tutorial tips and tricks that make even the toughest tech topics a breeze. Ready to elevate your development game? Let's jump right into it. So the first thing that you're going to look at here is how do you connect your SQL Server to your web API using the SQL Server installer and the SSMS. Let's first talk about what SQL Server is. SQL Server is a database management system developed by Microsoft. It is a software that helps you to store, retrieve, and manage data efficiently. Think of it as a super organized filing cabinet for all your data, where you can quickly find and use the information you need. The question is, why do you need SQL Server? You need it for data storage, for data management, that is by performing CRUD, create, read, update, and delete, and also which helps you in data retrieval, data analysis, and a lot. So these are some of the reasons why you need to use SQL Server or database in your application. Then, aside from installing this package or this installer, what else do we need? In order to integrate SQL Server database in your web API, the first approach is by using the installer. After installing this database management system, you have to install UI. And now this UI here is a management tool. It allows you to manage the database or the SQL Server that you have installed. So let's talk about the SSMS. SSMS, as indicated earlier on, stands for SQL Server Management Studio. This is a software developed by the same company of Microsoft for configuring, managing, and administering all components within the Microsoft SQL Server. It provides a graphical interface and a variety of tools to work with SQL Server databases. So this is the reason why you need to use it. It is also user-friendly, and it can help you manage the database, performing all the CRUD, and also it can help you execute queries, data analysis, and now backup and restore. So you cannot talk about SSMS when you mention SQL database. They go hand in hand. So let's first have a look. How do you actually install this? I have the links provided in this video description, so as you watch, you can just go to the description and I'll check it out. But before we do that, I have them also open wide here, so we're going to download them. The first thing that I need to download it is the SQL Server Management Studio. Well, you can decide to download the SQL Server first. Now here you go to this link. I'll make it available in the video description. Then you need to download one of these, the developer version or an express version. So click on this to download it. After that, you just follow the instruction to install that. When you are done, you're going to have a link in there to download the SSMS, or you can skip that and I'll come to this link and I'll download this SSMS in here. That is an SQL Server Management Studio. That is the current version, which was released in April 2024. So download this, and now when you download this, Now you can have access to the database and now the Management Studio as well. Let me open mine for you to see. So basically, when you install the database, you are not going to see the database. You can see the database only when you have a Management Studio or Management Tool installed. So after opening the SQL Management Studio, we're going to have access to our database. So that is the first. Now, in order for me to connect to the database, I need to fill in this. I have my SQL Server. There's a server name as the desktop that I'm using, and I'm using Windows Authentication. So as soon as I click on Trust Certificate and I click on Connect, this is going to connect to the database that I just installed. And now, if I open my Microsoft SQL Management Studio, that is how it looks like. So here you can see we have my database in here. Defaultly, it's going to have some default database specified for in here. That's going to be from the system database. You're going to have all these defaultly in it. But this is just what I created for the tutorials. Okay, so we have, as soon as you have this, it's just so that you have the SSMS. You also have your database installed, being configured, and now it is working perfectly. Now the next approach, or the next step here, it is to look at how you can connect this database to our web API and how to perform, could be CRUD or any other, yes, CRUD with this database. Let's look at that. So in here, I have my project open or created already. And down here, I have web API project created. And the name here, it is a demo SQL Server with web API. I haven't touched it. That's the default one. So when you created this, a boiler plate that you get from the app. Okay, so this is what I have in here. Now what we're going to do here is, in order for us to connect to the database, we need some packages to aid as a middle person to handle the interaction between our application and our database. So in order to do that, you need to install 3 packages. We need to install EF-Core, we need to install EF-Core.tools, and now also the SQL Server. So right click on dependencies and now go to manage NuGet packages, and now let's try to install these 3 packages. From the browse tab, I can type in EF-Core. And now this is what I need. So make sure you install of the same version. It could be higher. And also, aside from that, we need to install EF-Core.tools and also SQL Server. So when you check here, maybe you can have the tools down here. Great. Let's apply this, accept it, and we are good to go. Aside from that, we have a last package to install. Do you remember that? And that is an SQL Server. It is right next to the tools. So install this as well. You know, when you are done installing, if you want to verify whether you have these packages installed, I believe there are several ways to do that. Let me show you 2 ways to verify to see whether they are being installed on your system. You can just go to the Install tab, and now this is going to pop up all the files or the packages being installed in your system. Okay, so you can see I have these packages installed on my system. That is first one. You can also go to click on this project name, and now from the project properties, you can have access to the packages installed. So this is the EF-Core, that is the SQL Server, and that is the tool. This is the default one being added as soon as I created the project. And the last part here is to go to dependencies and also packages, and you're going to have the same packages also down here. So these are 3 ways that you can cross-check and see if the package did installed on your system. Okay, now that we have this working for us, what we need to do here is to create our connection strings, and we're going to do that in the apsettings.json file. So here, let's create a connection string for this, and I'm going to say this is connection strings. Now we're going to create connection string for the Docker and also for our installer. So let's say this is installer connection. And now with this, I'm going to give it a name as, let's have a server equal to local, because that's our local host. So from that, we have a database name here. What is the name of the database that you're going to create? This is installer DB. And also aside from that, let's start server certificate, or let's start connection first. Let's set this to true. So it should be trusted connection. Because I'm going to use Windows authentication, so I need to trust the connection. Then trust server certificate. Set this to true as well. So when you're done with it, it means you have a connection configured nicely. Now we can copy this. Then let's go to our application here. Let's create a folder for organization purpose. We're going to create a folder and I'll name it as data or data access. Well, any name at all, but it's going to hold access to our DB context class. Now let's create a class here and I'm going to name it as a name at all. Application DB context for long, app DB context for short. But you can give it any name of your choice. So app DB context. Alright, so now that I have this, this class has to inherit from a DB context. And this DB context is a default class that is coming from the that we installed. So that's a control plus dot. You can have access to these options, the suggestions. And in that, you're going to choose using Microsoft Entity Framework Core. Aside from that, we can create constructor in here. So CTOR will get you the constructor. And in here, let's pass in our connection in here. So we need to pass in a DB context option. And now with this option, we need to specify the app DB context class that we are working on. And now in here, we need to give it a name as what options. And this option should inherit from the base, that's the DB context. So I'm going to say DB context. Or that is a base. I can say that is a base in here and pass in this option. Okay. So once I have this, what I can do here is I can also implement the primary constructor. So this is the normal one, but the version of C# 12.0 it introduced primary constructor. So we can do that to make it just a line of code, and that's much more simpler than this. So let's see. Yes. So we have just a line of code and you're good to go. Now once you're done with this, what we're going to do next here is we need to create a model. So I'm going to put this model in the same data, okay, because it's just a model for that. And I'm going to say this is products. You can just create any model for this. And this model is what we're going to be using as a business. And this we're going to be using to perform a CAD operation in a database. So let's say in my database on the record, I want to have the first one as ID. Now this ID is going to be a key, and that's the data annotation that I'm specifying in here. And aside from that, I need something like name. So here's a string. I need product name. And maybe I'm going to have product description. That is a string. And I'm going to say this is description. Okay, so this is okay. I believe you can add more. So do add more here. Now, once I'm done with it, I can just copy the product or the model here. Go to app DB context. And now let's create a DB set here. So let's create DB sets. Let's specify the model name. And here, because we want to create table for that. So create table using this model. Specify the property that is specified here. Use each as a column name in the table. And this is going to be the table name. So if you don't specifically specify the table name here, this is what you're going to be using. But in case you want to change the table name, then you can append or you can use the table name attribute. So let's say table name attribute, and we can specify the table name here as maybe custom table. You can do this. Okay, so you can specify the name here. But for now, let's maintain this. We're going to be using the default one specifying the RDB context. And here we're going to say that use the table name as what? Tables. Well, is it tables or products? Yeah, products. So now that we're having this, what we're going to do next here is go to our program, the CS file, and then in here let's register the connection string that we created with our DB context class. So beta.services.add DB context, passing the app DB context class we just created. In that, you need to specify an option. I'm going to say this is O, and now this O dot use SQL Server. Oh, you're not having SQL Server. use SQL Server, and in that let's get our configuration. So builder.configuration, then get connection string. So this is going to get out a section from a connection string, and now what is the name given to that section? It is known as, you can just go in there and grab that. No, that is not one. Let's go in there and grab that installer connection. So in our program, let's paste it on here. Then we can now terminate this line statement. Good. So we have our connection configured nicely. Now, once we're done with this, we can go in there and perform database migration to create the database table for us. Before that, let's rebuild solution and make sure that everything is working as expected before we perform database migration. Now in migration, we need to first generate a file. Okay, now this file is what we're going to be using, and now to generate this file, we need to use add migration. Then we're going to give it a file name. So the file name here, it is dynamic. You can give it any name of your choice. Aside from that, the file that you have, you're going to use this file to create the actual database and the data in it in case you have any. So you need to update the database. So whilst updating, it's going to now transfer this database file that we have into the return for us. We're going to get the database created and the tables as well. So let's wait and perform that when the build is done. Now once it's done, we go to package manager console, and now in that, let's add migration. So give it a name, and I'm going to say this is first. So after that, I'm going to update it. Let's wait for the file to get generated. After that, we need to update the database. Okay, so you see it is ready. Now let's update the database so we can have the database shown in the SSMS. So while this is running, we can, if everything works as expected, we're going to have something down here. So if I refresh this, okay, it is not done. When it's done and I refresh this, I might see the database that we specified as installer DB. We must find it in here. Now I can see it is creating it. So let's wait. Great. Now let's refresh this, and I can see that we have the installer DB. So this is a database, and now we have, when we go to tables, we have only a table here named product. So let's wait. It's expanding the table. It takes some time to figure that one out. So let's wait. Good. So you see we have this product, and that is the table that we just created. So right click on this, and now let's go to maybe select top 1000 rows or 100 rows, whatever. Or you can also execute query with it. So let's select the rows and check it out. For now, the table is empty. So what we're going to do next here is we're going to be creating a controller to work on that. Now, once you have this, you can see we have ID, name, and description. And now that is empty, isn't it? Good. So let's go to our controller, and now let's have our CRUD operation in there. So in our controller, I'm going to change this to product controller. So product controller, yes, I want to change this name as well. And here I'm going to remove all this. A line here did not change. This should be product controller. Yes. I've already renamed it, so no need. Alright, so now that we have this, let's have our CRUD. Maybe not all the CRUD. We can have add and now delete. No, even add and now read, right? So let's add this. So here we can have access to our products. That is when getting a list of products. But before we have access to this context, what we're going to do here is we need to inject this. So we can create constructor and inject in here, or we can use the primary constructor as indicated earlier on. And now here we need to include our appdb context. Let's give it a name as context. So here we are returning the product, or the product we have returned to a list. Let's use lambda expression for this because it's a line of code, and we can do that. Yeah, so Here we need to return OK. Then await, we can get a product in the form of a list, and I return. So let me put this down here. Okay, so we have our product, and now get product. This must be a method, don't forget. And aside from that, we can have access to, maybe let's add post. So this is post. So here is an HTTP post, and now we're going to add product in here. So you can see that we add the product, we save it, and I return get product with the new ID that we have in here from this product ID, and now we specify the product itself. So let's see how to run this. Now after that we have this, let's run this and check it out. Okay, so the app is ready. Now if I click on get product, we're going to have empty list. As soon as you have empty list, it tells you that we are connected to the database and it is working. Then we can go ahead and add new item. So we have that in here, right? Now let's add product in here and I'll check it out. So we have a default one. Let's say this is product name. Then we're going to have description. And as soon as I click on execute, it must return ID of this product and also the same info seen here. So here we have an issue. It is saying that no route matches the supplied values. Okay, so let's actually find it out and then see the reason why it is saying that. Now when we cross check our endpoint, we have product.add this product. Okay, so maybe let's try to comment this. Now let's return okay with the same product, or we can get a product and I return it. But for now you want to return just the product. Forget about the ID because you are not actually much focused on the card now. All that you want to do here is you want to test and see whether our database accepts data reading and data writing. Now let's refresh this. Okay, so let's try this out. We're going to add maybe string 2 as a product, and now let's click on execute. Yes, you can see that we have the ID in here. We also have the name and the description. That sounds great. So now we'll be able to connect. Now how do you view? If you want to verify and check it up that did this data go into the database actually? Let's find it out. So in here we can now run this again, and I can see that we have the data in here. So this is the first approach. So you can decide to use the installer using the SQL Server and also the SSMS to manage the SQL Server. And now you've seen how you can connect this into your database, perform, create, and read. Now let's see if you want to switch to Docker. How would you do that? Let's have a look. The next approach here is connecting your Docker to connecting your SQL Server to Docker and then connecting them to your application. So first of all, what is Docker? Docker is an open source platform that allows you to automate the deployment, scaling, and management of application using containerization. A container is a lightweight standalone package or software that includes everything needed to run an application. So it contains the code, the runtime, the system tools, libraries, and our settings. So as you can see that, it's a container, ship container, right? So that container contains everything. So creating this in a container means it's going to handle every other environment that is necessary for this app to run. Okay, so we're going to have the SQL Server running a container. Now, why do we need container? Why do you need Docker to run applications? Now, consistency across environments. So when you have your Docker settings being set up across all environments, you can run with it. Now, on Windows, we have SQL Server. We have this SSMS, right? Studio. When you go to Mac, I'm not sure we have SSMS. And do we even have SQL Server on it? No, you cannot install that. So you have to run it on Docker. When you do that, then it's going to make it available no matter the platform. You can run this application, you can run this management or database management on it. So talking about our application, not only for SQL Server. So Docker made it simple, and it made it portable and versatile to all platforms. Okay, so now that we know at least some basic information on this, let's see how we can integrate that. So the first thing you should do here is you have to install the Docker desktop package. How do we get it? It's very simple. Let me show you, and I'm going to leave this link to under this video description so you can go in there and also grab it as well. Now once I'm done, I can close this because we are done with this. We're not going to be using this anymore, so let me get this closed and disconnected. Also, if you don't have desktop or Docker desktop installed already, then you go to this link. I'll leave it in the video description, so don't worry about writing all this. Check the video description and now click on these links. Now click download any one that you want. You have the beta, you have that's the stable one, so download it based on your operating system. But for now, this is for Windows because I'm using Windows. If you want the Mac or the other operating system, maybe you can find it down here. So this is for desktop, so maybe you can search for Docker. This is for Windows, and let's see. Yes, so you can see we have for Mac, Windows, and Linux. So it supports these three platforms, so you can download any that suits your system. Good. So after you've downloaded this, when you launch your Docker, you're gonna have something like this. Okay. Now in my container, okay, so let me clear this. So this was done when I was testing. So let me delete this forever because I don't need this for now. So when you install this, this is the interface that you must see as a default interface that you're going to see. And now you can see we have the engine is running. So you must make sure the engine is running. Now even I have a new version available for now. This is okay for me. Okay. All right. Then the next thing to do here is open your terminal. So let's open terminal. And this terminal could be it could be the window PowerShell, or it could be the command prompt. Any of them, you can use it in here. Now, once you have this terminal, to verify whether Docker is installed, even aside from the view that you see, if you want to still verify that, you can type in docker version, and it will also give you the Docker installed and the version of it. Now, this is my version that you see on the screen. Okay, so now this is working. I can clear everything here. Now we're going to start. Now the first thing to do here is we can pull this image of this SQL Server from this Docker-Hub. So we can pull this before we run, or we can run it, and now it's going to check, do we have the image? In case it doesn't, then to go in there and pull it. Okay, but for now, let's pull the image. You know, when you go to my images, I have pulled it already. So you can see I have an SQL Server image in here already, as you can see. So you know how to pull it. But if you want to pull that, then how would you do it? This is very simple. Just a line of statement to make you pull that. So on the same terminal, okay, so on the same terminal like this, all that you should do here is to type in docker pull, the mcl Microsoft dot. So that's mcl.microsoft MS SQL Server 2019 later. So this is what you want to grab. You want to grab 2022. So you can check from the Docker-Hub in case you have the 2022 latest. You can also pull that. But 2019 is okay for us. So we want to maintain that. So click on this, and now this is download the image from the Docker-Hub. So after doing that, if you want to verify whether this image has been installed, has been pulled from the hub, you can type in Docker images. And now this, we're going to list all the images that you have for you. Now you see from here, I have Postgres database, and I have my SQL Server database access. So I have two databases in here, and that is the size that you can see from here. Okay, so after I'm done with this, the next thing I'm going to do here is we need to run this image. So in order to run it, there are some few things that we need to do. We need to accept the SQL Server rules. We need to accept it. We need to also set up a password. This password here is an SA, that's a system administration password. We need to give it a unique password. And I need to specify the ports and the name of the SQL Server and the container name. So how do you do that? We can start it by using Docker run. And now in there, Let's see. So here, let me clear everything. And now we need to specify docker run -e. Then we have our accept EULA. We type it Y. So this is the license or the terms and conditions we have to set up. Now typing Y here means yes. This is my password, so that's a unique password. And I have to specify the port and now the name as an SQL Server. And now the D here is a detached, so we are not going to see the code when running this on the console. Okay, you can decide to remove the D and you're going to have it. And now there's an image that you want to get it from. Right, so once you have this, maybe we can click on this and I can see now this is running the application. It is just running. Now to make sure it's running, maybe docker ps, and you can see that we have all running images. So it is running on the port of localhost, that's a 0.0.0, and now that is a port 1433. So if you want to connect to a TCP port, we must specify this 1433 in our connection string. Okay, with the port specified, with the address specified in here. If you want to also view it visually, go to your images, and you can see that we have your image here in use. So Postgres is not in use, but SQL Server is in use. So when you're able to do this, it means you're good to go. Now you've done configuring your Docker. Now the next thing to do here is to configure your API here and now connect it to your Docker. Now in order to do that, it's very also simple. All that you need to do here is to change the connection strings, perform new migration, and boom, you're good to go. So let's have a look on that. So from application, we go to our connection string in here, and now in our connection string here, the connection string here needs to be updated a little bit so it suits what we have already, or it suits the connection strings in the Docker. So in order to do that, I have one in there and I'm going to make a copy of that. Okay, so let's see. Now with this, let me give comma in here, and I'm going to give it another name as Docker installer. So that is a okay, so this is an installer, and let me see Docker connection. And now inside this connection, I'm going to specify the same thing. So server here is a local host, and now we have this the port 1433. Remember that when we install this, we have the port specified 1433. Remember this, and that's what we need to specify in here. Database name here is an SQL Docker DB, or maybe I can change it to maybe Docker DB. Okay, so YouTube Docker DB, because I have this already, so let me change it. So YouTube SQL Docker DB. It sounds weird, right? Never mind. Then we have a user ID here is an SA, that's a system administrator. Then we have a password that we specified when running the Docker, that's the SQL image. Good. Then we have trust server certificate. So we set this to true. Then that is all, because it's going to be using the SQL authentication to authenticate the server, and I'll get into it. Okay. So you need not to specify trusted connection. No, don't do that. Maybe you're going to have an error. Can try that and now you testify. Okay, so let's see. Then let's have this set already, and now we're going to save this. So after that we are done with this, the last step left is copy this connection. We go to our program, and now let's update this. So update from the installer connection to the Docker connection. That is all. Now we need to rebuild the solution, and after that we need to specify it or create a migration, and that will be all. You see, connecting to Docker is very simple, isn't it? Or is it because we've done that the connection settings already? Yes, maybe. So let's clear this, and now let's add new migration. And I'm going to make it at first because I have deleted the first one. So this is going to be a new one. Let me make it capital. Okay. So if I check my solution, you can see I do not have any migration folder here. I've deleted the old one. So from here, this is going to create a file for us. After that, you're going to update it. Now when updating it has to connect to the database, so it is connecting to the database with the port that we specified here to our Docker. Now update database. Now this gets getting connected to the Docker database in the Docker, and it is done. So let's go in there. Now let's run this application as well. We're going to also add product, and I'll view the product. After that, we verify from the UI and see if we do have the database in there. So now this is ready. Let's click on product. So try this out. Let's execute this to add this database as a record. Now let's wait and see. Alright, so we have it. Now let's try to read as well. So now we've created, and now we are going to read. We are reading everything in the database, and now we have a record in here, isn't it? Now how do you verify this? So if I open the same SSMS and I refresh this, do I see any? This is an installer DB, but I don't see the next one, that is a Docker DB, YouTube Docker DB. I don't see that. So because here I did not trust connection, trusted connection is going to use this Windows authentication, because if I disconnect, let's say disconnect this, and if I want to connect Object Explorer, you will see from here that I have this authentication type here as Windows authentication. But with this, I need SQL Server authentication. So in order to do that, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use another tool for that. It is a universal management tool, and it is known for, it is called dbeaver. Sounds right. So dbeaver. Now this dbeaver is an universal management tool. It can help you to connect to other databases. So here, let's focus here is to connect to our SQL database that we specified. Now let's go to database, and now new connection, and you're going to have a pop-up. Now this pop-up, you're going to select MySQL. So this is Microsoft SQL Server. Click on next, and then here we need to specify the host. The host here is a local host. This is a port 1433. That is what we specified in the connection string. And for authentication type, you need an SQL Server authentication. We don't need Windows authentication. We need an SQL Server authentication. You know the username SA, that's the default one for system administrator. Then the password here, what I specified was Netcode-Hub at 2024. Do you remember yours? Show us scheme trust server certificate. And now we can click on test connection, and now check it out. So you can see we are connected. Click on OK, then click on finish. And as soon as I click on this, and I'm going to have my databases. So you see now I have YouTube SQL database. Now this DB here is coming from the Docker. It is not coming from the installer. It is coming from the Docker. So click on schemas. Then you can see from here, do you have it in here? Our database, DBO. Click on DBO, and now from table, and you can see we're going to have our product table. So these are the columns. If I click on this, then go to edit it. Do we have edit? You have view data. Okay. So if I click on data, we're going to have access to, it's going to fetch the data in it, and we have string, and ID of 1. So you can see that we may be able to integrate the Docker, SQL Server Docker into our web API. And you have it. So 2 powerful ways to connect SQL Server to your .NET Web API. Whether you prefer the traditional setup with the SQL Server Management Studio, or the modern one, that's a containerized approach with Docker. By mastering both methods, you are not just enhancing your development skills, but also making your application more versatile and robust. If you found this video helpful, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss out on our upcoming tutorial. Drop your questions or thoughts in the comment below, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.